Welcome. Today we're speaking with Topp, good friend of mine, came and spent a month with me in Montenegro. Good way to get to know somebody. We went deep on business, we went deep on training, and had some good experiences. There's a podcast from that time. It was when the village was a little bit less developed. Today we're going to be talking about heart-led business and the power of working from a place of service and a place of wanting to make the world better, and how you can do that through business and what you need to know to be able to do that. There's a lot of people who want to make the world a better place, but there's skills involved in that as well. So just adding Jay to the stream. Welcome, guys who jumped in. Here we go. I'm on my phone because I'm in Poland at the moment. I was going to do this from the computer, and then I remember the sound last time was a bit funny. Welcome, team, and great to have you on. Jay, thanks for connecting with us.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here. It's been too long since we've done one of these, so it's good.
Excellent. So you're in Colombia at the moment,
yeah? Yeah, I'm in Medellin. Got here like a week ago. Yeah.
How many countries have you been to now?
I think this is number 60 or 61. I'll have to double check the list, but it's 60 or 61.
I was thinking about that when I was writing this email. I knew you'd been to 50 plus, but I didn't know if you'd clicked over the 60. So yeah, first time in Colombia. What's the first impression there?
Yeah, it's incredible. Hey, like the view of the city out of my apartment is amazing, and it's different to Mexico. I think Mexico, where I was living, was in such a bubble, and like the rich and the poor were kind of like separated a little bit more. But here it's everyone's all in together, so that you see some interesting things on some walks around the street, and but there's an amazing community of like online business owners. I went for a steak last night with a bunch of guys. A guy who sold his business for like $100 million a few years ago. Just like a crazy community and network of guys playing big here. So it's inspiring to be around that as well.
It's kind of known as the city that Pablo Escobar was based in, right?
Yeah, it's Pablo's hometown.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about like business from the heart, and then what it takes to scale. Like you've worked now with a bunch of different businesses, so you've got multiple experiences there of different types of business owners, different types of businesses, but similarities in things that have made them successful. Are all the guys that you're working with, would you say that like they're doing what they would want to do anyway in some way?
Yeah, for sure. Like the business is like, it's a heart-led business. It's their mission. It's what they're here to do.
So sometimes, that in itself is something that you hear thrown about as being a really positive thing, and also as being a really negative thing. Like there's people who really criticize the idea of like build a business around your passion, and because maybe you're going to struggle to make money, and the market needs to care about what you care about. And if you just do what you're passionate about, like I suppose that's how a lot of people end up in fitness, and then they realize like, oh well, if I don't have any special skills, it's not actually that fun to follow your passion into being a personal trainer, and then you're sort of working 10 hours a week, struggling to find clients, wandering the gym floor. Like this is almost the worst of following your passion, is being that struggling online trainer or guy working at a gym, which is a lot of men that I've dealt with over the years. What would you say to those who criticize like the follow your passion idea and say like just make money and do something else for fun?
Yeah, I think it depends on your situation. I think skills is definitely like a big part of it. Like if you have no skills and you just like something, it's going to be very hard to build a business without skills. But if you've got skills, you're an expert at something, you can do and help people in a way that not many people can or nobody else can, then I want to spend my time doing things that I love and building things that I love. So it's how I want to spend my life. I'd hate to spend my life doing things just for money. But depending on your circumstance, maybe at the start, it's a good place to start. Like when I started, doing online stuff. I wasn't just doing projects that I loved. I was doing, whatever could get me paid, whatever gave me an opportunity to get better, develop skills, to be able to get resources to invest back into myself. And then I think over time, I was able to become more and more aligned with what I really wanted to create. But I think, if you so many people have, especially like young people, have like a fantasy of what their business can be, and like, oh, I only want to do it if it feels if it just feels so nice all the time and it's so easy. And I just love every fucking minute of it. And like, that's, I don't think that happens.
Yeah, so it's not a Disney movie that I get to work for myself now. I don't feel like I ever have to do anything hard or that's uncomfortable, or that's not the reality of it. But I guess it depends why you get into business and what your goals are in life as well. Like for me, I always just wanted to be able to train, eat well, study, read books, be around cool people. Like that was always the goal. And I experienced that backpacking, and it was sort of all right with it. The thing that was missing was more so the company. And like I got sick of just meeting other backpackers. And sometimes you meet someone who's amazing, but I sort of wanted to find crew that were interested in training and more like studying and good food rather than getting drunk all the time. But that was probably my main frustration. At that point, I didn't really realize that I love business either. Like I would see business now as that if you don't have a business and you don't, like it's the best self-development tool that you can buy for free. People are investing all this money in self-development and personal development. But the best thing you can do from my perspective is like start a business and then get around other guys who also have businesses, because then they'll understand, you'll understand yourself, they'll understand you better. And it's going to make anything that you do in the self-development space much more valuable, right? Like you've worked with John DeMartini, who has like a pretty cool spiritual approach to self-development. I think in a roundabout way, that was through me, and then Ben, and then it's quite funny how that circle of like the first salesman that worked with me, his brother also lived with me when I first started Real Movement back in the day. He ended up becoming a mentor of Jay's and helping Jay to see the path to this. But what are your thoughts around like that as a personal development tool, as a self-actualization tool for those out there who are kind of struggling to find their path in life?
Yeah, nothing has been, forced me to grow and develop more than being in business. I don't think there's anything that causes someone to grow so much. But then there's also like, I think the best bit is it gives you a vehicle to monetize your growth. As in a lot of people go on these growth journeys, but they grow so much, but their employer gets to monetize their growth, or as they grow and expand, they've got no way to actually financially gain from their growth. But if you have a business and you're growing and you're going on a journey of personal development, the business is going to grow with you. So you get the benefits you get so much of the benefits of the growth. But yeah, like a lot of people buy courses or do mentorships or invest a lot in personal development. But a lot of it's just talk. If you get a business, it's like, it's all action.
Yeah, that 100%. Like what's John DeMartini like with that from your experience? Like, was he really encouraging of like continuing to dive deeper and go more premium, challenge yourself in that way as well?
Go more premium in which way?
Like price point and leveling up your service and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I think he always talks about like the law of fair exchange and being in fair exchange with the people that you're working with, and I think charging what you're worth. And I think it's if you can find a way, to help people get what they want on the way to what you want, I think that's perfect. But yeah, he's obviously an extremely expensive guy. Like lives on a boat that goes all around the world. I think it's like 15 million or something to have a room in one of those in his boat. And he's neighbors with Gina Reinhardt on the boat. So he's an extremely expansive dude, and how he sees money and the business game. But he's not a business guy. Like he's so focused on his craft. He's kind of pretty much, I think, like let go of a lot of the business stuff now. I think he could do a lot better if he focused on it. But he's just so focused on his on his information.
Interesting. So you've got this concept of information in the world. Quite a few Uncom players and people from my network are involved in that as well. Like, tell us a bit about your vision there and what that means.
Yeah. So I didn't enjoy school once I got to like my early teens. Went through a few schools in a few years, and dropped out of high school at 16 to go full time in my business. And I went traveling at the age of 18 for just under a year. And when I got back from that trip, I went through the Middle East, all the way, and then from Turkey to Paris, up into the Nordics. Did way too many countries. And by the time I got home, my whole life was different. The way I saw the world had been completely reconfigured, and I just grown more than I could have ever imagined, and changed in ways I didn't know I could. And I thought to myself, wow, like there's so much happened in like 10 months. Imagine if I committed to like a decade of going on this journey instead of going to university, instead of going to college or doing, what society was pushing me into. Imagine if I just traveled the world and sought out amazing people who had mastered, different areas of life that I could go personally learn from. Who could I become after a decade of that process versus going and getting doing a 4-year degree at Bond in, I don't know, marketing or some shit.
And it is pretty much only like how old are you?
23.
Yeah, so it's the age that most finish university, or maybe 1 year older. A lot of Germans, Europeans, just be finishing their bachelors now. Maybe.
Yeah.
Would you trade it? Imagine that you had a bachelor's or a master's now versus 60 countries.
It's so funny because we got people in like the Education in the World Telegram group that I went to school with that did do that pathway, and they're just like, it's like they're starting at the start. Like they've just finished an expensive degree, and they're like, Jay, what do I do? How do I get a client?
It's actually much worse than starting at the start, in my opinion. Like people don't realize the cost of university, like the amount that it takes away that you could have done in terms of all those life experiences that you've gained. But also, people become jaded. They've often had tons of drugs and alcohol, sometimes like lots of sexual partners and stuff, which it is what it is. For some better than others, or whatever your take is on that. But it's also like a time when your brain is really neuroplastic. Like in Uncommon Success, as you know, we juggle, right? Like you've spoke about it in one of those videos of like, why is he teaching me to juggle? Why is he making me do this? But the brain is more neuroplastic. Like we see it literally, like the 18-year-olds that come in, sometimes within a month. Like Sebastian's just joined from Norway. In a month, he's got 8 or 9 throws of 5-ball. Like that took me years. And there's guys at 50 and older that join the program, and it takes longer. Like it literally takes them longer to wire it in. And it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean you can't get there. But there is neuroplasticity here of like you're losing your prime years of learning. If you wire your brain, like when I hear your story, you started so young. So it's like you've been all your adult life thinking about this way of how do you market, how do you get messages across to people in effective ways. I think that's such a competitive advantage that is underestimated. I would say like go get your degree when you're 30 or 35. Like it'll be fine then. It'll be the same shit that they're teaching, but you can learn so much more. You can get the money first. If you think about doing exercise science, become a great trainer, be making a bunch of money, and then go to your degree on the side, or do it part-time by correspondence. If you want the degree, fine. But you're probably not going to get a top job in the sports team until you're 30 plus anyway. It's very unlikely. So the cost is like much bigger than people realize, especially Australia and America. People look at the financial side of it, right? Like it does cost you a bunch. You either rack up debt or you pay. But the Europeans tend to think it's free, but it's not. There's a price you're paying there.
Yeah. That's like, man. I speak to, especially when I did that, I did that year of travel, but I went home for a year and then I've been traveling again since.
Pause there for a sec. You're welcome to comment in on the YouTube as well. I don't know. I think you can comment directly. Those who are on StreamYard. The private chat there. Yeah, cool. yeah, if you, commenting on within the YouTube with any questions is probably the best way to go. We'll see if Jay jumps back in. I'm going to check out the guests there. I'm going to buzz you in, Chris, if you'd like to. Otherwise, you can put your hand up or comment in the chat there. What are you hearing here, Chris? You look like you're a little bit more of my position in life. He's back, but I'll throw here to Chris for a second. Give us some thoughts here in a young man expressing himself like this and being on this journey. Like, how do you see this? Oh, you might be on mute there, Chris, or something. All right, we tried. There's a technical issue there as well. We had a technical issue there with Jay there for a sec. Okay. All good. Yeah, Rise Up Rugby saying I regret going to uni. Like, it's hard to look back on your journey and say you should have done it, but it was a tough time for me as well. Like, I drank way too much. I didn't really drink before uni, and I didn't really want to be a drinker, but it was that environment. And yeah, it's on me. Like, I was weak, but I was in that environment where that's what everybody does. And I stopped for periods of time, and I drank a lot for periods of time. And I'm sure I damaged my brain. Like, I remember feeling very, very down and damaged from some of the experiences that I had there. And I was working at 4:00 in the morning as well sometimes. So I would sometimes go to bed at 4:00 in the morning, and then I would sometimes wake up at 4:00 in the morning. And that's not a good recipe for mental health, optimal brain function. And yeah, so there is an alternative. And the alternative that you've been living is you kind of got dragged into a little bit by your parents, and your parents being entrepreneurial and them needing some help with their business. You've shared that story quite a bit. Like, what were some of the lessons that you learned early on that helped you get off the mark? Like, before we talk about like that, getting 100K and stuff, which seems like such a big jump for many. Like, what did you learn in the early phase that sort of helped you realize this is possible?
Yeah, I think well, I was seeing like the direct results of what I was doing. So like when I first sort of started figuring out Facebook ads, I kind of launched my first ad, and it led to like a high ticket client in my parents' business inside of like a week or so. So I just instantly like saw, okay, this is valuable. I know I can do it. And then it was just, and then I think I just got exposed to more and more people that were doing it. Like, my family is very entrepreneurial, and all their friends and the people that were surrounded by were entrepreneurial. So it was kind of like the culture that I was in, had a high value on entrepreneurship, on wealth building. So just being in that environment, I knew it was possible because I was looking up to people who were doing it. I was having conversations, and everyone in my life was like doing business, not in this way, not in this amazing online way yet, but people were doing business.
Yeah. When was it that you realized that online was going to be the game changer?
Yeah, when I started working with Ben, hey, like I was very local at the start. I was doing digital marketing, but I was doing it the old school way. I was knocking on doors to get clients. I was working with local car yards and real estate agents and everything in my hometown. And then I met Ben. I got a Facebook ad. He was doing a handstand in front of the pyramids in Egypt, in Cairo, and talking about business. And I was like, who is this guy? Bought his book, had a call with him, did his program, and he was all over the world, doing something similar to me, but without restriction, like geographically. And I was like, oh, that's the way. That's how I want to live my life.
So who was your next big win after, like, you worked with your father's business and helping him to go through that transition online? Who was the next big win?
Yeah, so I had some big wins for like local businesses. Like there was like a big car yard on the Gold Coast that we just, they were doing up like the big Ford Rangers when they started to kind of get popular. So I had a lot of success with them and sold a lot of cars. But then probably like one of the bigger wins was I had somebody come to me to do like the book system. He was teaching tradies how to like scale and grow their businesses. and he kind of came to me with the book concept. He wanted a book kind of done, and we launched it, and that thing just it cooked so hard and just was just extremely profitable straight out the gate. And that was a big moment of like, okay, this is what I'm going to really focus on.
Yeah. And so you've been doing, that's been the primary focus since then, right?
Yeah, that's been pretty much since then. That I might have like dabbled with, I had other clients doing other things, but pretty much, since then I was like, this is the system I'm going to master. This is going to be my thing. I'm going to be the best in the world at that.
So what does it take? What does it take to have this sort of 6-figure a month business?
What does it take? I think, I think for me, it's like I've got to do 6 figures a month. I've got to create 10 times that value in the world for the people that I'm serving, so to be able to do that, I've got to create sort of 10x that.
And some of the businesses that you're working with have done those 10K months, right? Like you've got the profit share deal with guys that you work with, you're doing the marketing. But tell us about like what sets those offers apart from other stuff that you see out there. Like what are the components that are making a difference?
Yeah, the difference between somebody who does 10K a month and somebody who does 100K a month, there's definitely there's different steps on the journey. I think the first step is like having a great product. So many people skip that. They jump straight to marketing, and if you don't have a good product, you're gonna have to market it for the rest of your life. But if you put that time into creating a great product to start with, it makes it a lot easier. So starting with a great product and validating it, making sure people actually want to buy it, and not spending 10 years building a product before you actually try and sell it, and validate it by selling it. Get results, get undeniable proof, and then build a system that can bring in, more sales calls than you can handle every day. That's kind of been the path. It's like validate the offer and then just fill a sales team's calendars.
Yeah. So for anyone listening who's not there at this point of the 10K a month, the focus is on make a product that really works and have something that you've got a bunch of testimonials around and that really works. And I often encourage, players, I jokingly or sometimes half jokingly say like, you should be paying them to work with you, because if you can get people just to do your thing, like they're already giving you their attention, they're giving you their time, and that's actually going to give you money if they get results. So it really doesn't matter. Like people stress so much about the price point initially and like sales and everything. It's like your first 100 clients, don't even worry about it. Just get the results with them. Just do the work. If you have to be working at 7-Eleven on the side or driving Uber, does not matter at all. Get that experience, make your product better, iterate, and then you like once you have that, you have gold, right? If someone comes to you and they're like, yeah, I'm getting 10 out of 10 reviews, like it's this is how many clients that I can handle, then at that point, like there's opportunity. But if you try and squeeze every dollar out of the first clients when you're not really 100% sure if you've got the right offer yet or how how the delivery is going to be, you're just putting the brakes on the process, right? Like,
yeah, you got to optimize for learning at the start. Hey, that's so many people want to just make money straight away, but like a lot of the guys that I help kind of do like agency or marketing sort of stuff. If anyone asks me about that pathway, like I always just say, just get some clients that will let you work for them for free and just get paid on what you generate. Like if you can get somebody, you can get a client. Like there's a guy in the group last week, and he got a client. It was just like a local Sparky, and he's going to run Google Ads for him, and he's going to get X amount on every deal that he closes. And it's like amazing. You've just got like the perfect way to learn, rather than just being on YouTube trying to like learn the skill without actually having a place to practice it and get results. Just work for free. Yeah.
If you want to do sales, like offer for someone, hey, I'm just going to go out and try and sell your product. Is that okay? Like if I sell it, will you give me a commission? Everyone's going to say yes to that.
Yeah.
But how many offers like that do you get? How many DMs do you get coming in? I could get 1 million DMs saying, give me $1,000 and I'll make reels for you, or I'll write your emails for you. And sometimes they do what you say of like giving you free work, but generally it's low quality. And yeah, like the thing is what you should be looking for is how do you get the experience? And for me in my craft, I worked for free at the Parramatta Eels, for a couple of years. And then that meant that I could get an assistant job that was 10 grand a year at the London Broncos. And I was running their rehab and I was running the gym. I ended up having tons of responsibility on 10 grand a year. But that then meant that I could get a 30 grand a year job at the Catalan Dragons. And then that meant I could get 100 grand at the Sydney Roosters. And then that meant that I had mad credibility to go out and say to other coaches, hey, I just coached a world champion team and Sonny Bill Williams and whatnot. It wasn't the strategy at the time, but when you look back, it's exactly the same thing. You do your apprenticeship, and through that apprenticeship, you open up the opportunities for the future. I don't know why it's such an ingrained thing to think I'm worth $10 an hour, or I'm worth $50 an hour, or I want to be making $200 an hour. Therefore, I'm going to demand that before I've really proven that I'm worth that. Like if you can prove that you're worth it, someone will pay you because they'll want you to keep hanging around. So I think that's a good picture of the start, and some philosophy on the start. What about when it is time to scale? Like if you do have that, there's a few players within Uncom. We've got Nick Tricato, who's just been hitting his 10K months. He's thinking now about, okay, how do I go to the next level with this? I'm pretty much maxed out, 50 clients, a few $100 per client. How do I get that to the next level? What is it like when you first start working with someone? What are the changes that you often need to make, or the assets that you build?
Yeah, for sure. So I think being able to have like scaled delivery and be able to deliver one to many, but still have like a good product. And, a lot of people at the 10K a month, they'll end up being like the delivery, their ability to deliver will become a bottleneck. So maybe it's tweaking the offer for them to be able to deliver at scale and to be able to get the same result with it being a much lower touch from them, or being able to do it one to many rather than like one-on-one or in small groups. So doing that. And then, I scale, like obviously there's different paths to scale. For me, the most predictable path to scale once you have a proven offer and concept is paid ads. You have the most control. You can scale it. You can spend as much as you want. If you try and scale big numbers organically, you're kind of at the whim of the algorithm, of whatever's happening on the platforms. It's a lot harder, but I think paid traffic is definitely going to be like the most predictable way to scale and get consistent results every month.
So were most of the guys you work with already doing ads before you started working with them, or is that something you generally introduce to them? And
I usually introduce it to them. Maybe they've mucked around with just like Instagram ads, or they've just bought ads on their phone just for like brand awareness, really just throwing money away. But yeah, they've probably played around with ads before. They might have had like little funnels here and there, but they've never like built a proper system.
Chris is asking a question here around like repackaging the product to attract different groups. Do you repackage a product to attract different groups, price points, or you go with one product that's working?
Yeah. How I view it is like create the best possible product you can until you get to like a couple $100,000 a month, and then there's like opportunities to maybe test different markets. But a lot of people will spread themselves thin, try and sell different things. It's like, nah, just create the best possible one product and sell that till 150, 200K a year, and then you can maybe look at at other products. But simplicity scales, complexity doesn't. So it's like the last thing you want to do is like scale a complex business, because that would just be a nightmare. You want it to be simple.
And what price points are they generally selling, the people that you're working with?
Like 5 to 10 grand a year US, sort of like programs, mentorships.
Yeah. So the guy I was talking to this morning that I was telling you about, he was saying like up to 3 grand you can pretty much sell without a sales call through like webinars. And what's what's your experience with that? Have you tried anything without a sales team, or you've always relied on the sales team?
Yeah. So one of our clients, like Alice, she's been experimenting without sales calls with some success. Like her audience is like young women, or not young women, but women like, under 40, 20, 25 to 40. And a lot of them are not like that into sales calls.
Yeah.
um, so she's been able to close through Instagram DMs on WhatsApp. We'll do like a call to action email, being like, "Hey, I've got X amount of spaces. Send me a voice message on WhatsApp." And she's been able to close using WhatsApp voice messages and like just like Kajabi landing pages that outline the offer and have payment links.
Yeah. And what kind of price point is that?
That's like 2.5 to 10. There's like different packages, different levels of support, but it's the same program, but different levels of support.
Yeah. The depth of the relationship makes all the difference, right? Like if you've been building a relationship for a long time, then like I sold, maybe 30, 35, 10K packages in 6 weeks by messages, but it was guys who'd been like, almost everyone had been in the audience for a long time. They'd already done other programs with me, or, when it's that sort of situation, it's definitely more doable. Tim Frey, who's got Helix Gym in Perth, he recently had a product launch. I think he did 500K in the first month. Wow. And he was one of the Real Movement guys back in 2016. He's amazing gym out there, and now he's gone like business coaching. He's probably like the 7th or 8th guy now doing the business coaching, and like $500,000 launch. Like, respect, that's epic. Yeah. But it was like all warm, It was before they'd even really pushed anything, before they did any ads. It was like the existing audience that are ready to go. So that's another thing that, like, do you care about like the organic audience and like the legitimacy of that within a brand? Like some of the guys talking to today, and like a lot of others that I come across in the business world, like they almost don't have a real brand, and they just run ads and then sell from the ads, and it feels like a really different business compared to like what I've done over the years.
Yeah, I think brand has the highest return on investment over any sort of marketing, but you just have to be able to wait long enough to get the returns. A lot of the guys in the internet marketing space have very small time horizons, so they're interested in like lead today, get them to book a call tomorrow, and close them the same day. But they miss out on so much of the compound interest because they don't create a brand, they don't nurture that person for years and years. So they end up just like chasing their tail, living month to month. Most marketers live month to month because they don't actually build a brand. They don't build anything long term. They're always chasing the next month, So, but I like to think we can do both. Like I love to go crazy on ads. Spend 30, 50 grand a month on ads, but then have a system that person, whether if they don't take action straight away, gets to stay in, gets value, and gets warmed for maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a year, maybe it's a couple of years until the time is right for them to take action.
Yeah. To me, it seems like such a shame because I know a lot of times people that I work with, it's 2 or 3 years. It's literally 2 or 3 years between when they first see me. So I think like, okay, I can put an ad out there and get myself in front of new people and get myself in front of my existing audience. But if there's already people that have been watching me for 2 or 3 years, and there's a lot of them, then maybe it's really just a question of getting the message right for them. And I kind of like working with those ones better than the people that maybe have just seen me. I feel as though it's like less likely that they're going to have as good a journey or be as valuable to the network. Do you have a feeling around that now that you're sort of building your own community and network? Like these guys, if you end up working with, I'm sure you're going to end up working with some of the people that you're attracting to your education in the world. I think it's going to be so cool, a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, when the time comes that they're at the point where they're ready for your service or something evolves within your business model. And Is that sort of how you're looking at it, like that long time horizon and sort of richer relationships in a way?
Yeah, for sure. I'm like trying to, yeah, I'm just focused on like building the community and building, because the community, I guess, will be a big part of the product, you know? So at the start, I'm just trying to find like-minded people who want to go on this journey and start being able to, yeah, to be able to help people on that journey. I guess I've helped people in my own life. Like my sister came and lived with me in Mexico for a month, and after a month, she moved out of home for the first time. She dropped out of uni, started a business and landed her first 3 clients, and she moves to Portugal in October. And this happened in like 30 days of us living together.
What do your parents have to say about
Yeah, they're actually pretty pumped. They were a bit at the start because there was like a lot of change and
that?
like, but they're back there, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And now what's funny, my parents actually, they're moving, their whole family's moving overseas now. They're moving to Spain. So
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, you're an inspiration to your own family and to many, and that's a cool thing as well. You're the eldest, right?
My sister's older.
Oh, your sister's older. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, it's still the eldest son, and you're kind of trailblazing and opening up new possibilities for your family. I think it's a really cool thing to be proud of, and yeah, to have that impact with your family as well as sort of people at a distance. I was just thinking as you're sharing that, like you with the lifestyle that you live in now and the opportunity you have, like you should rent a really cool place for a couple of weeks or a month and open up to your audience there of like, hey, come live with me for a month. We're gonna stay at this place, and I bet you would get some epic experiences and transformations. Like have them apply to it, and you get the people that you want. But that in-person stuff is so powerful, and I'm sure it's on the agenda for you. But like, yeah, what are your plans as far as like we had that month together. We got to hang out with Luke Carter and stuff and do the boxing and like it was these are good times. Like do you what do you have planned in terms of the connections on your travels?
For sure, because the in-person stuff's irreplaceable. It was actually a year ago today. We were together.
Is it?
It was last August that we did that month together, and that was huge for me. Like I went and did my first, 7-figure run rate month after that. We spent that time together. That was huge. And I think that really showed me, wow, that's the power of coming together with somebody on the same path, because I'd done the travel thing. I'd just come from 6 months in the Arctic Circle, living in a co-working space, but I was hanging out with people who didn't, they have those same values. So yeah, the in-person stuff it's irreplaceable. So I'd love to do some events and get people together, because for sure, even like Dom came and lived with me for a bit in Mexico, and he came to me on I think his parents had to buy his plane ticket to get him from Europe to Mexico. He didn't tell me till later, and he left with a $10,000 a month business and a bunch of money in the bank, like after 3 months or something. So the in-person stuff, we had him eating steaks, training every day, like the in-person stuff. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens over the next year with the group and just with my travels. But it'd be amazing to get everyone together for a month and do everything. And with the group, I'm experiencing like I put on ads for the first time maybe like a month ago or a month and a half ago just to test. And again, like crazy cheap leads, like $1.50 leads or something. Got like 800 people in the group, like 2,500 people on the list. But they're not buyers, so the lead quality isn't super high versus like when a book funnel and somebody spends money, if it's even just $10 or $20, the investment of just that transaction, it just makes all the difference. So I'm looking at the moment and just like putting a little sales page together and getting an initial buy-in just to attract better people, get people to show up at a higher level and feel more invested.
The possibilities are there, the opportunities there, and that's sort of how I feel as well with with everything that I'm building. It's like building for where we're going to be 4 years from now. And I'm excited for who I'm going to be at that stage and who you're going to be. Also, the man that I'm working with, it's that we need to do the work so that when we come together, we're in a much better position than where we are now. And that's kind of the fun of it. I'm looking forward to us getting another period together, whether it's in maybe Paraguay or Mexico or somewhere ideally later this year. And I feel as though it's going to be clearly another level, because we've already kind of broken the ice with each other. We've done some work together, and I know that good things will come from that. You can't help but wrestle with the ideas of how do we make the world better? How do we double our businesses? How do we train better? How do we have more fun in the process? It's just what we're going to talk about. And so when you continually put your attention on that, it's the same with you and Dom, right? You have your time goofing around or whatever, but there's it's always, you're going to keep coming back to it because it's what you're thinking about. And yeah, it's the compounding effect of that across network is something that I'm really excited about. The network effects of, okay, this guy's really good at book funnels and this one's really good. I love the physical stuff as well. And then there's crypto and investing crew. There's so many different specialties that it's that. I mean, I'm building the business that is the ultimate complement to my own lifestyle and thinking about who I want my son to be around. That's literally, and so what I need to teach those men and what I want those men to be capable of and what I want them to challenge me to do. Do you have is there a bigger vision emerging of where this is going to go for you as you continue to get better at your craft and build your network? What do you see for it in the future?
Yeah. I want to create an international school. Hey, a place for young people to be able to come and go on the journey of life mastery to learn high value skills, get the remote income, which is really just the ticket to then go on their own journey of self-discovery, to go into the unknown, to go to the depths of themselves and find out what's really there. But I believe that, starting with the remote income, because that is the golden ticket that allows you to just go on the journey. Yeah,
there's a tipping point of money, isn't there? That's I can do this indefinitely now. Where would you say that is for someone who's listening to this? Is I kind of get what you're talking about with business, but I'm not that pumped on it yet. I just want the lifestyle. Where would you say that tipping point is of being able to perpetually get educated in the world, go and travel?
Yeah, it really depends. It's a scalable system. I feel like you could get just $2,000 a month and you could go live in somewhere in Indonesia or somewhere in Asia, even somewhere in Latin America, really cheap. But it just, I think the goal is not to do it as cheap as possible, but it's to be able to continue to expand on how you can invest into the education. So for me, it's it started out with probably $10,000 a month, and then it's been able to grow, and I've been able to, I'm able to right now I'm living in Medellin, and I've got the freedom to be able to do 5 hours a day of Spanish for the next month at a school here. So which is awesome. But you only need a couple grand to get started. But I'm not interested in seeing how cheap I can live. I want to see how expansive I can be, and and not be silly with money. But I think when you try and live small and live cheaply, your life ends up pretty small. But when you live, in an expansive way, everything grows. And for me, every time that I've invested in bigger experiences, everything else has grown. My business has grown. I've made more. But a couple grand to start for sure.
So we're doing this StreamYard thing, and there's crew in the background. If you would like to contribute to the conversation, ask a question, introduce yourself, I would like that as well, because this is the richest of it. I know that we are going to have these experiences in the villages soon. I think Chris has just booked to go to Montenegro over from the States. He's got a beautiful place there just outside of New York. So it's going to be a significant change of circumstance visiting our humble little village over there. But I'm super excited for him to have that experience. I think Rob Wester is going to be there at the same time, who's from Scotland, Australian, but been living in Scotland. who's a real deep thinker and smart man as well. Yeah, I'd love to hear thoughts from yourself there, Chris, listening to this conversation. Questions? Oh, you still got the sound issue, bro. Sorry. You might have to give permission to StreamYard. It might not give you the. I don't think it's on my end because I've got the mute, unmute, and you're not muted. Because they chose to can't unmute because they chose to mute themselves. Maybe test again. No, it's still no good. Do you want to? Is there anything you'd like to share there, Michael? I saw you were on the call as well yesterday.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Oh, okay. I wonder what's going on with Chris then. No, so I'm on my way to work and I have mediocre service at best. So I don't know how clear it'll come across. Chris asked a question in the chat about product. I know you guys talked about yellow, so I'm sure you wanted to talk about that, but you guys can't hear him, so I figured I'd ask for him.
I did answer the question that Chris was asking there about do you go with one product or test multiple, etc. There is a bit of an issue with the sound quality there as well, Michael. I appreciate you checking in. We're playing around with this StreamYard thing. I think it is going to be cool when we get it buzzing right to be able to make it a bit of a fluid conversation and add some different perspectives and experiences. We've got Brian Carew coming on next, Jay. He teaches like harnessing sexual energy and sexual, like healthy sexual energy. He was working in the movement space and then he's transitioned into that. He's a really deep thinker and he's setting up an agency kind of service around sort of holistic businesses. So I think you would get on really, really well. He's done well with business for himself in Vancouver, Canada. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting conversation. We are going to go into the kind of sexual stuff, which is not really a conversation that I've ever had publicly, which will be cool to sort of discuss a bit of what he's seeing there. I don't know where it's going to go. When he joined, a couple of the guys on the team were like, did you see this guy join? Like, he's sure he's, allowed to come into the community? we get on super well. And it's like, it's interesting. Some of his content is confronting and it's not like the kind of stuff that I post, but I love that we have like this diverse kind of network and like seeing guys leveling up and taking it to the next level so they can live that expansive vision. I think the villages are a huge part of that. Like seeing what Nico's done, 26, 27, I think he is now, his own village there in Bali, and he's got some big next projects coming. Seeing what Ben's done, like it's just giving permission. I think sometimes you need permission of like, go out and get after it. Like, what would you say to someone who's watching this and they're thinking like, oh, it's all right for you, Jay, you started early and, you did this and that. Like if someone's sort of doubting that they have the ability to do this, that they're smart enough or that they're pretty enough or whatever, like what would you say?
Yeah, I'd probably say just, yes, get as close to Keegs and the guys in the community that are doing it. Hey, get around, get as close as you can, rub shoulders with the guys who are doing it because, human beings, like we become our environment. You can't hang out with people doing it for so long without it rubbing off on you. So get around the guys that are doing it and, take action. Like that's probably like one of my biggest strengths is just like an extreme action bias of like, if I have an idea, I just fucking do it. Like I'll just do it. Like I'll just say, I've got an idea, I'll make it happen. Like I'll just do whatever it takes. I'll make it happen. I don't wait.
These are the two pillars, the first two pillars of Uncommon Success, like connection, action, new knowledge. That's the environment for success. And yeah, the thing that people don't think they want when they come in is like doing the Zoom calls with random people around the world. But it turns out it's not that random. It's like really like brothers, but even sometimes better because you really want to help each other succeed and you've got like more in common sometimes than even family have. Do you have like people that you catch up with regularly that, help you to keep expanding your vision and like what would you say your connection circle is like at the moment? You got your clients obviously who are pushing hard in their own way and you've got that synergistic relationship with them where they're talking to you about what they're working on and how things are going with their clients and such. How would you say your own connection side of things is at the moment?
Yeah, for sure. And because it's like it's not restricted to people in the local area, it's like it's amazing. So yeah, I'm touching base with my clients who are on the same path as me. Touching base with Carew in the education in the world group, in Uncom, anyone that I can kind of that I can support, and then also helps me refine my message. And then having conversations with people like you, Keegs, and the people that are ahead of me on the journey as well, trying to have conversations at like a weekly level with people I can learn from, people I can share with at the same level, people that I can help that are just starting. And even like when I'm traveling, like here in like Medellin and Mexico City, there's a lot of people on the same path as well. So to be surrounded by people that left the normal way of living in America or Australia or the UK and on that whole new journey, to be able to just share a coffee with them, talk to them, that's inspiring as well, just to know that there's other people on this journey.
Yeah, I get so much energy from having these conversations, and to be honest, it still only takes me about a week or so of like being a bit isolated that I feel like something's off, something's missing. And sometimes I'll have like a couple of bum days, and then I'll have a call like this, and I'll be like, yeah, I'm sweet again. Like I'm excited about what's next, to get an idea. And like there's still ups and downs for me. Like I used to be really up and down in my 20s and teens, and now like the downs are nowhere near as low, and the ups are good, but generally like things are good. The thing that helps me most is the connection aspect. I think it's pretty well proven in the mental health literature. So you're like building this network of people who want you to be better and expect you to be better, and you can be proud of doing good things around. Fabian just came out to Montenegro with us. He's demolishing the press leaderboards. He can do handstand push-ups at nearly 100 kilos. And he's just getting his business pumping, and we've been encouraging him. He's good at social media and really good in front of the camera, and he's been on TV and stuff in France, but he hasn't really been super business minded. I don't think he'd take offense to me saying that. And now he's excited about getting onto the entrepreneurial journey. Excited to introduce you guys, and hopefully you can catch up one day soon in France. But
Full ma gueule. Sorry.
We can hear the background.
I've talked to you, Jay. It was 2 months ago, something. We should have booked a call, and we did or we didn't. I can't remember. We couldn't find a time to talk to each other. But yeah, it'd be very good to talk with you whenever you feel like.
Let's do it, man. Let's do it. That'd be awesome. I haven't been that active on the calls for the last little while, but I did have a couple calls. I think I had 3 calls like the last fortnight, and I was like, man, why haven't I been having these calls? Like, it's amazing. I spoke to the guy in Belgium the other day. He's at Astral. I forget his Instagram name.
Yeah, I know.
Such a legend. He actually connected me to a bunch of guys that I hung out here in Medellin last night with his mates. So it was like, the connections are so good.
Where are you in at the moment?
In Colombia, in Medellin.
In Colombia, okay.
Yeah.
Do you plan to stay there? Or are you going to
a month at a time. So I'll see how I go.
Okay. So you've been to Bali with Nico, did you?
No, I haven't seen Nico's place in Bali. I would love to go to Bali. I
thought you went there.
Bali's too close to Australia, though. I gotta stay away. I need to be further away.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm going there I haven't booked the plane ticket yet, but in like a few days. I don't know when exactly, but less than 10 days, I think I'll be there. He wants me to build like a business, not a business, but he wants me to help him on the video things, video and photo for his, like the village is already built, but for another one as well. He told me like he wants to build another one.
Wow.
One more for families, not just for men.
He's got some big plans there. It's pretty cool. The vision just gets bigger that's what I'm excited about, is like you can't really think about what you will think about once you start to make like good money. Like that's the reason why you have to make the money, is because it gives you a new freedom of thinking for ideas that you just automatically dismiss, or it's very difficult for you to hold them as like possibilities. But my hope is that by building this network in the way that I'm building it and seeing that it's already happening, like Nico and I started speaking 2000 and he saw my stuff in 2016, at the end of 2016. We started speaking maybe 2018, 19. And now, 4 years later, he was working for me when I first started to try to build my own app. And then he built his own app. And then, he actually leveraged the Dents stuff really well as well. I mean, speaking to Fabian about using the Dents knowledge, which was a big part of the Motion Concept app, which helped Nico to get started. Fabian's building his own app, leveraging Dents and like customizing it based on the individual sort of tendencies of the individual. Yeah, the neurotype, personality, basically. So, yeah, the plan is, the goal is that Fabian can think bigger sooner because he's seeing what Nico's done, he's seeing what you've done, he's seeing, like, we are these communal beings. And yeah, I wish I started it 10 years ago. Like, I could have done this 10 years ago, but instead of focusing on just teaching the training techniques. But we're here where we are now, and there's so much potential, there's so much possibility. That's how it's meant to be. We're meant to feel excited for the future and what's coming next. There is a question there from Michael. It was actually the question that Michael was asking me to ask about Chris was like characteristics of a scalable product. There's a guy called MJ DeMarco. His books Unscripted and Millionaire Fastlane. Really, really good books. But he's really against coaching businesses, and he hates like mentoring, coaching businesses for whatever reason. He's he's a good speaker and a great writer, but he loves like books, and he likes physical products and things like that more so than selling sort of mentoring and high ticket. So yeah, that was a question around like what are scalable products, which I think I sort of know the answer, but maybe you can speak to, because a lot of people go into that, like when they start thinking about this, they start thinking about drop shipping and all that sort of stuff as well. So maybe good to share like some thoughts or experiences around like those different markets.
Yeah, for sure. So like, for example, like you could do as a men's coach, you could just do one-on-one sessions, with men. And that, you can do like 40 sessions a week or 50 sessions a week if you want to work 50 hours, but then it's capped and it's not scalable. So what you could do is you could do a group of, you could do 1 to 5, or you could do 1 to 10. And you could just create systems that they get the same result, but require less of you, and just find more leveraged ways to deliver the same result. So yeah, the most obvious one is, instead of going 1-to-1 in the coaching anyway, is to go 1 to many. But there's heaps of different ways you can bring in. If it has to be 1-on-1, you can bring in more coaches. You can do small pods. You can look at how you can leverage pre-recorded material rather than needing everything to be live.
And a longer call once a fortnight or once a month or even once a quarter might be what men want as well, like or customers want, and a weekly check-in via email or Telegram, or like it all depends on how you frame the value and how you're able to kind of get it across. Like there's no one way. I don't think that cap is ever truly like time in that sense of it's just too many sessions. And you get this with personal trainers as well. It's just a way of thinking about things of, okay, I need to do 4 sessions a week with this person so I can get enough money out of them. But if they're willing to pay for 4 sessions a week, what they're paying for is the result. If you can get them that same result with a mostly online service, and you train them once a week or once a fortnight, you can get 80, 90% of that income or 70% of that income with 80% less face-to-face time if you build out the systems. And maybe that one client doesn't want that, but maybe the next 10 do if you set that as the rules from the start. Like it's really just creativity, systems, and developing. And you're probably making 7 figures before that is a legit problem. Like, because you can bump your prices up and you can shift the services around. But the dropship type deal as well. Like I'm curious of like, you would definitely have people asking you about like all the kind of other ways of making money online, which there's lots of ways, right? Like they can work, all the fulfillment stuff and the Amazon. What are your thoughts on going down those kind of paths of like, I'm going to start a clothing company or?
Yeah. I got there's heaps of young guys trying to start OnlyFans agencies at the moment. Like that I talk to, and it's like these young, such talented dudes who have so many, like, even I was talking to a guy, he's like a creative, like, artist dude, so talented, and he's trying to create an OnlyFans agency because he was told that's like the easiest way to make money online. And it's the same with like drop shipping a lot of the time. Like even the Amazon FBA stuff, it's like, I don't know, it's not that meaningful to me. And, I don't really see them as like, maybe as like real businesses, as in they're just like a way to quickly earn money fast. And I think trying to earn money fast is like probably like the surest way not to get it.
They tend to be very, very saturated markets and require super high skill, and then often bring a lot of risk with it. If you have to buy a bunch of stuff from Amazon, or if you're doing something that's like borderline or that's going to make you feel bad. I spoke to one guy who was doing the OnlyFans stuff. He's just like, yeah, I got to stop. Like, I'm just not proud of being in this business.
It's literally like, well, from what I've heard, that's just scamming pretty much. You're just like pretending to be a chick messaging other guys.
Yeah. It's a way to make money, and it's an old industry. Like, I don't know if it's a crime, but like, do you really want to be putting your life force into that? I think it's a pretty good segue. We're going to jump to Brian in a second. I'd love you guys to meet each other. But yeah, thanks so much for sharing again with us, Jay. Like, it's always good to reconnect, and I want to talk with you more later around the final stuff that I've been thinking about there. I got some stuff to share, and I look forward to getting together face to face again sometime later this year.
Yeah.
If people listen to this and they're wanting to connect with you more, what's the best way for them to kind of get in touch and see what you're up to, get your emails, how they get involved?
Yeah, probably my Instagram is the best way. It's just Topp, JAYTOPP. And then in my bio, there's links to my YouTube channel, which has got like a bunch of projects that I've worked on there, from documentaries to a bunch of different stuff. It's got a link to my free community. Yeah, that's the best way to go.
Yeah, we didn't get to touch on your movie making side and the creative side, so definitely go check out Jay's movies and docos. Do you want to just give a quick plug to those before we jump out?
Yeah, I've just created, like I did, I lived in the Arctic Circle for 6 months last year and created a documentary all about digital nomads in the Arctic Circle, surfing in the snow, and life in the north, and all the possibilities of being a digital nomad in those places. I had a bunch of fights in Mexico at the start of this year. I made a documentary, I guess, on that process. And yeah, there's a motorbike ride in there. There's, my path, the quickest path that I would take to being able to become geographically independent in like the shortest amount of time possible. Yeah, there's me and Keegan's chat is up there. A bunch of interesting conversations with people in Croatia, Montenegro, France, Mexico, all over the place.
Tune in, you get that role model experience of if this young Australian man can do this for himself, then what can I do? It's a good question to be asking yourself. And people say the comparison is the thief of joy and all that stuff. It's not about comparison, it's about inspiration. If you didn't see that inspiring stuff that other men are doing, then how would we even progress? We should be looking at what others are doing and then test it for yourself. Do I want to live like that? Does the travel suit me? Do I want to learn Spanish as well? These are the questions that I hope come up for you listening to today. So thank you so much, Jay, for the way you're living your life and everything that you're doing to move mankind forward in a positive direction. Well done on the recent gains in the boxing and training and all that too. We didn't get to touch much on the athletic side, but I see you've been going hard and you made a good change there too. So well done on that side as well.
Oh, thanks, Keegs. So I always get so much energy from our chats. Looking forward to maybe Paraguay later.
Still, and so yeah, Brian is a chance of getting a visit down there at some stage as well. He's going to Peru, so it's not a million miles away. I'd love you guys to meet each other. Brian, welcome. I remember following your stuff and having some messages way back, looking at your physical training when it was Carew. I think it was Carew Movement, maybe was the brand. But you super impressive physically, and then you sort of made this transition into talking about sexuality and men's energy, and I was like, oh, I think I got to tune out of this. Like, this is, I don't know if I'm in for this. It's challenging for me. I think it's very challenging for me, the work that you're doing and seeing some of your videos. I'm like, what is he doing? What is this about? But I've seen more and more that sexual energy and, porn, masturbation, it's a huge issue for a lot of men, to how they're dealing with their creative energy, and self-image around all these things can have a massive impact on the quality of life, quality of training, quality of business. And so now I'm glad that I, get to have this discussion of what can we do to optimize this stuff. And I'm excited to hear, your journey as well, like how you went from being a successful, online coach and training the movement side to doing what you're doing now.
Thank you, Keegan. Yeah, it's been quite an interesting journey, and I realized, what I've created or what I've brought forward can be, let's say, for lack of a better word, triggering or alarming, or for a lot of men, it can be unsettling. And perhaps to some degree, subconsciously, that was part of my point, because I wanted to bring some of this message forward. But really, like, what is encompassed in my work now is a paradigm shift. Ultimately helps men to understand, I think, one of the most important relationships of their life, which is with the way that they conduct themselves sexually and how that energy works in their body. And also I would say, like, for a very deep-rooted misunderstanding of our relationship to pleasure, and also our relationship to pornography, and like what that does neurochemically and also physiologically to a man when they're constantly, let's say, giving that attention outside of themselves, as opposed to giving it to their own body, their own psyche, their own brain, let's say.
Yeah, it is something that we all value as a fairly primary thing, right? If any man is honest, like, it is an important element of life, like to find a woman and have a good sexual life. But yeah, it's probably something that's taboo to speak about. Like, there's not much public conversation about it, and you generally don't get taught that much from your parents and whatnot. And thinking of it as that one of those primary things. I wonder why you're still here, Jay, because I'm sure you probably got to jump out in a minute. I'd love if you want to share some thoughts on this topic, because I know you've been, you've worked with people who are in this sort of space as well, and you're on a deeper mission that's not just about building funnels, which is noble in itself, but I don't know if you want to share some thoughts in this area before you jump out.
I don't know if I've got too much to share. I'm probably just a listener on this one, but I guess I'm on an education of the world, so I'm trying to empower myself in all areas of life. And I've definitely been on a journey on this area. Like, I grew up in conservative, like, Christianity, where I was saving myself for marriage up until I went and had my own experience in the world. And I've tried open relationships and but I'm just I'm on the journey of just, I'm open to different ideas. I've just kind of trial and error at the moment.
Very cool. Appreciate you sharing the current position. And it's when you travel in the world, it is really a strange thing. Like, at your age, Jay, 23, that's when I met my now wife. We met when I was in Germany. We met when I went out after a hockey game. Like, I was playing hockey over there and just went out with the boys. The first night that I went out with the new friends over there, I met my now wife at a nightclub. Now, I haven't been to a nightclub in so long. It's not really my way of life now. But when you're moving around at that time in life, it is a weird thing, as far as, like, you're consistently meeting new people. And I went from Germany to Latin America, and then in Latin America, I was like young blonde dude, traveling, and it's very different to what it was like in Australia. And then you sort of having these experiences of like when I was, I was a late bloomer when I was like 16, 17. I was like really awkward with girls and didn't really, didn't have girlfriends and stuff, and sort of wanted to, but was just really shy and awkward. And then all of a sudden I'm in Latin America and there's like, I'm popular, and you're like having a completely different experience of life. And then at some point you realize like this, I don't want to be giving all my energy to this. So yeah, I would say that I'm curious of what your experience is, Brian, and what like led you to want to have this conversation with other men.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe, well, at a very young age, I was like anything. I think like any young man or young boy, I was fascinated with my body, fascinated with the opposite sex, and I've always known for a long time that there was like a sacredness to the exchange, but I ignored that, I think, for a long time in my life due to lack of guidance, and that led me down like a pretty dark path. Like for many years of my life, I was exploring various things and not telling anyone, and just kind of being ashamed of the truth of my desire to explore my body and explore my sexuality and exploring pleasure. And through those times of hiding, I learned a lesson, because eventually I did share with another man who was like a close friend, and he was like, he basically was like, that's okay, man. Like, why you don't need to hide that stuff, especially to me. So that first lesson was that, oh, there's one, I can be accepted for this. And then as I started to share more of that story or more of those interactions, other men would share with me online or wherever I was sharing this, like, yeah, I'm going through this type of similar thing as well, or I am curious about these things. And a light switch kind of turned on for me, where I realized men don't normally share a lot of these topics, especially sexual. And that was kind of a big spark for me when I was younger. And so throughout that journey, though, I was, getting into movement, as you mentioned, coaching movement, embodiment became a really big fascination of mine. And kind of fast forwarding through that journey a bit more, the desire to understand, I guess, what sexual life force energy was and how to use it, how to express myself through it, became more and more pertinent and more important. And I found out that there are practices and there are ways to cultivate this within my own body that no one had ever showed me. And it was quite beneficial for so many things in my life, especially my relationship with my body, and also which I think is the not so great relationship that most men have to pornography. So I'm kind of jumping back and forth here, but around, let's say, in my teenagehood or like early 20s, I noticed that, watching pornography would be something that I would go to even if I had a girlfriend or even if I had access to a real human. So this was something that alarmed me, and I wanted to eliminate that out of my body and my mind if I could. I knew that this was not something that's good for me if I was choosing to go to a screen as opposed to my girlfriend at the time. So at an earlier age, I realized this isn't really good for me, and I started kind of going on a journey of removing myself from it. So it's kind of interesting for me. Like, I had these internal signs of, one, being very curious about sexuality, and then two, knowing that inherently pornography wasn't maybe the best thing to be watching all the time. And it's these natural curiosities that ended up leading me to wanting to figure out what it was for myself, and then realizing there was no education on this topic. I couldn't find a lot of men talking about it, and that's where the desire for me came out. Is I wanted to, one, give other men hopefully a place to speak about this, and show them that, hey, this is actually a normal process for us to want to discover ourselves in these ways. And there are actual practices, and there are actually ways for us to tune into our nervous system that optimize other aspects of our life. Like when we give ourselves the chance to, for lack of a better word, cultivate pleasure, we're able to be more disciplined. We have a different relationship with our brain, because again, we're focusing on our body as opposed to the screen. And I can go way deep into that, but the point being is like I had these natural inclinations and I was curious, and along the journey there was many moments of darkness, and you can even say being out of integrity, but it's through that desire to keep learning and learning and learning where I came into more understanding, more clarity, and eventually realized that men need to understand this, I think, to a degree, if they're going to be integral in their relationships, and also if they want to like optimize the energy that's in their body, optimize their focus and their attention.
So what's your take on porn now, having kind of been through those experiences? It's something that a lot of men are trying to figure out what their relationship with is. And sometimes it's confused with masturbation as well, of being like almost the same thing. If you start talking about porn addiction and stopping porn, some people, like, without thinking about it, associate that with masturbation. Like, what's your take on porn?
Yeah, I think that I don't believe anything is totally inherently good or bad, although I do believe that like the standard industry stuff, and this comes also from experience because I at one point was in that world. Like I stepped into that world again out of fascination, out of a desire to know what it was for sure, and it's very contrived. Imagine Hollywood, like cut scenes. There's no like the actual interaction of sex, which I would think requires conversation and many different layers of intimacy and interaction. That's lacking. So I think that's not very good because it portrays an idea, like basically I'm presenting to you on a screen an idea of what this interaction is, but then the creation of that is contrived. It's like, you know, chopping up a human and being like, hey, this is life. You know, it didn't derive naturally. So that, of course, creates some ideas in the brain for a man as to how that interaction is supposed to go. And then the nature of how you can interact with the video, being able to scroll or being able to take in so many different images and so many different scenarios at once, inundates the brain and floods the brain with dopamine, which in a real life scenario, when you're connecting with another human, you can't just scroll to any point. You have to allow yourself to be present and to have a connection to your nervous system with that other person. So for those reasons, I think it can be very damaging. But I think there are also the possibility of, let's just say, showing the whole picture or being more holistic, for lack of a better word, or even educational. So I think there may be a place for these things, if, you know, depending on how we go about it. But for right now, I think pornography, I see it as like a byproduct of the lack of willingness for our society to work with sexual energy, and that because that energy is so intense, you know, the pornography industry has been produced as a byproduct.
Yeah. You are someone who thinks deeply about the world. Like, porn has become so abundant and like easily accessible to anyone, such a massive industry. Like, on a deeper level, what impact would you say it's having?
Yeah, I think ultimately it is, well, on the brain, again, it's really creating a not so favorable relationship with dopamine, where, again, it creates that situation where people, well, we'll talk about men, we'll keep in the context of men, they're training their brains to be flooded with that chemical and also have these unrealistic expectations. I think it's also, if sex is a multi-layered thing, like if it has this many layers, I believe pornography is showing like this much. And that's really dangerous because there's whatever people want to say. Some people might want to say that sexuality or having sex can be purely physical. I think this is absolute nonsense. I don't think that holds any merit. There's always an emotional exchange. Whether you believe in energy or not, there's a deeper neurochemical exchange, and it's different for men and women. And men not learning about that and understanding the difference of an experience that a woman goes through, especially with oxytocin, that hormone that, you know, creates connection. I think there's a level of responsibility that pornography is not offering to men and showing them how powerful of an exchange this really is, like how deep of a bond that can be created. And I think it creates a little bit of like a let's just mess around, let's just explore culture, which to a degree I think there's importance in that. But it pushes away from the possibility of more commitment, more devotion, which I used to be more in that open relationship world, and now I've shifted completely. Actually, a lot of this work has shifted me completely to, you know, being very committed to my partner, wanting to be with her and not share that energy with anyone else. So I think what I'm trying to say and encompass is that it takes away a bit of the sacredness and maybe even like the totality of the power of self-pleasuring or sex, and just kind of post it as this like, hey, you can just really get yourself off. It feels really nice. As long as you're ejaculating, you're being a man. I don't think so. I think there's so much more depth to it, and it's really selling men short on what's possible with this sexual exchange.
I speak to so many men who lack confidence and drive, and struggle to get themselves going with their training, with their business. Like, is it possible that this is one of the keys to that? It's not just diet and sleep and getting to the gym and having good friends. Like, where would you rate this against all of those things in terms of importance?
Yeah, that's a beautiful question. With the rating, it's hard for me. I need to take more data, I think, at this point. Intuitively, I think a better question is what, or maybe like a more like what expansive question is, what happens when more men take this as seriously as, you know, training or finance or the things that men usually look up to externally that make them men? How much more powerful do we become? How much more, you know, one thing I was talking about recently on my Instagram is like this positive competition. How much more of that happens? How much more does the world become safe? So is it like there are men out there who can do really, really great things with their training, with their business, no doubt. And I don't know what their connection to this practice is, but there have been some great writers, like I think even Napoleon Hill, that they've mentioned over time that the connection to sexual energy and your sexual prowess is incredibly important. So, but the men that I've worked with, like I've seen great change in their confidence, in their business, debt consolidation. I mean, it really all comes down to, this is the most original relationship in the universe. It's like the positive pole, the negative pole, man and woman. And for men, you're always going to be either distracted or very inspired by that opposite pole. And my work is to teach men how to be inspired by it, invigorated by it, and to be a master of that pole, as opposed to being a slave to the desire and just like excreting their life force into a tissue. Rather, it's like learning how to use that for you. So I can't give the total rating, but I think it would have a profound shift in the understanding of what men is culturally and the paradigm of it, and give us like it'd be a higher buoyancy, right? There'd be more buoyancy for all men in a sense.
I like that. I like that word as well. Buoyancy. It's a good way to put it. Yeah, it's obvious. It is difficult to rate. Like, it's difficult to say how important. Some people say sleep's number one and diet's number one, and social environment's number one. Like, it is kind of arbitrary to say what's what, but sexual energy is almost never in that conversation as one of the factors. Like, it's not on the list when everyone's talking about, okay, you need to diet. Your diet needs to be good. You need to exercise. You need to sleep well. Get your hydration right. Like, focus on your breathing. And it's not on the list. Like, that's probably more the point, rather than, where in the hierarchy does it sit?
Yeah.
Why? Yeah. Why would you say it's not on the list? Like, because it was on the list historically, right? Like, you know something about the history of it with different cultures, and like, how has it slipped off the list?
Yeah, exactly what you're saying, brother. It's not on the list. I want to see it on the list. That's the mission right now. It's like, let's get this on the list. Let's start talking about what happens, right? And I think it's not on the list because the way in which our political, religious climate had evolved over the past, let's say, for like 2,000 years, there is this kind of inundation of the idea that, and I understand why this happened, that, sex is for a married couple, and like anything before that is evil. And just like this whole shame around sex. And, it's interesting to a degree. I think there's a lot of merit in that. I think that the union, the sacred union, for lack of a better word, or, man and woman coming together and treating that as sacred is actually really, really powerful, important, because of that original relationship. Like, Hermetic principles, the first law is gender. Everything has a mother and a father. It's like, it's a substrate in a fabric of evolutionary reality in our world. But I think that idea went a little too far, and there was no space or anywhere that anyone could speak about or even conduct themselves sexually. And it's like holding energy in a container, and it's not like the energy is building and building and building and building, and it becomes more pressurized and more pressurized. Eventually it's going to find its way out. So I think it's just the climate that we are in. There's no space to talk about it. If you did, it was very sinful. And when that gets passed on generation from generation to generation, even though there's been a lot of progress in the way that we live our lives now, that's deep within the DNA. You know, you could have been killed for doing something that I did a couple hundred years ago, 500 years ago. Like, that is in our body. That is a message that's transferred over and over again. So naturally, I think it just takes time for us to recognize, okay, it's actually not that bad. There are ways for us to conduct ourselves in these ways. And again, shifting the paradigm, like these old cultures used to see this as life force, like the ability to create life. And that's the paradigm I'd like to bring back. It's not just about penetration. It's not just about having sexual intercourse. It's about the way that you're creating yourself. See yourself as a for lack of a better word, God, that you're the creator of your experience. This is the way you do that. This is the way that you actually bring your energy forward. So making it of a higher degree as opposed to this like very solely primal experience. Mm-hmm.
So what does it look like to take this area of your life as seriously as your nutrition or your training or your breathing or your sleep? Like, what,
Mm-hmm.
where's the starting point for that? You've been a personal trainer and you know what it's like to have the first training session, or movement coach, you know, whatever where does that journey begin? And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we could use training as a similar model. There's I'd say, like, similar to training, like when I started working out a long time ago, there's an adoption of a philosophy that this isn't just something you go to every so often. If you want to train and you want to progress and you want to be able to do amazing things with your body, like the amazing things I can do with my body are a result of consistency, discipline, and showing up. It's very similar. It's seeing it as, like, I saw my physical practice as a sacred thing, or like a church. I was like, I'm going to this, I'm dedicated to it, I'm going to show up for it. So there's that. And also the practice, or the adoption of a paradigm of seeing your body as I see it, as like biotechnology, like that it's absolutely amazing, and that when I harness it and understand it, I have access to one of the most powerful tools. And then shifting one's understanding of what's possible for the male body. So, and maybe this can be parallel with training as well. If you're constantly trying to be shown what's possible instead of recognizing that, okay, yes, I can actually step into really deep states of pleasure, ejaculating, although like there's nothing wrong with it, but doing all the time may not be of the greatest benefit to me. And adopting these different ways of seeing your body in pleasure, I think, is really, really important way to start. And then again, the consistency. So if I dive a little bit more into the practice itself, is removing that external stimulation and learning to connect with your own body as a man, and how to be aroused by your own self, how to breathe into that. Yeah, how to actually have a connection with your body. It's a very like old and ancient approach. It's an idea in Taoism that whatever I give my attention to, that's what I'm giving my energy to. Like your awareness, like the way that your attention is energy. So it's understanding how to, like, similar to working out. There's studies that have shown that, when you focus on your musculature and the movement of that musculature, there can be a dramatic increase in the benefit, or I think the lean mass muscle gain. And this is like a similar practice, is like giving yourself that energy and shifting your self-pleasuring or enjoyment of that practice to you, making it about you and making it about refining yourself. So I'd say those are a couple of things. Like the most important thing really is the mentality. I think it's shifting how you see it, and seeing it is just as important as sleep, just as important as nutrition and training. If you see it in that way, you'll treat it with much more reverence. But if you see it as like, whatever, I'm just gonna like jack off, then that's what it could be. That's what it'll become.
So generally, if someone does come across this world and they decide, okay, sexual energy is an important thing, like the most common thing is either to quit porn, or the other one is like no fap. So talk to us about like, is it like, is that what it is to cultivate this energy, is like the no fap movement?
Yeah, you have these are great questions. I'm really glad actually you brought this up. So my work is to bring this in a modern way, because there's all these ancient practices. A lot of it men can't grasp it. They're like, what is this? So I've done the work in my own body to understand how is this relevant in our current day and age. And the no fap, I think, is just on one end of the pole that's way too extreme. I don't think any man should never be ejaculating, and nor should they be ashamed if they do. You know, there's a process in there. It's not like you just stop it, you stop the flow, and then okay, now you're good to go, and your sexual energy is, you know, all boosted. It's really important you need to teach your nervous system how to handle that. You know, that like on a non-woo-woo level, like what are we doing? We're changing our brain state. Your nervous system is learning how to take on different hormones and chemicals, and ultimately more energy. And you're learning how to shift that relationship to your body. So I think the most important thing actually is shifting one's desire to look at a screen or look outside of oneself for pleasure, and learning how to be aroused and be present with your own self as a man. Like if you can learn how to do that as a man, if you take anything, whomever's watching this takes anything away from this, the presence that you can give to yourself is the most important thing. That shows up in your sexual relationship with a woman. So I wouldn't say it's just about no fap. It's understanding how to breathe, how to expand your awareness into the subtleties of your pleasure, and then, for lack of a better word, learning how to like expand your awareness out of just your genitals into your whole body. Learning how to feel into your whole body, because again, when you're looking at a screen, I'm sure you've had moments, as I've had, like I'm watching a movie and it's like I don't really notice my body anymore. I'm just fully in whatever I'm watching. I'm not cognizant of what my body is. Maybe, I'm like, okay, I realized like my back is now hurting. When did that happen? So instead of doing that, we're focusing on the body, and you're really aware, like, okay, wow, I just felt this subtle shift of wave of heat move up my body. I felt this. And so, yeah, I'm kind of tangenting a little bit, but I don't think just holding your semen is a good idea. There needs to be an approach, a method. It's kind of like just going in the gym and doing like one intense workout, or doing this one thing. It's like, oh, I'm just going to do this one thing in isolation, and it's going to result in these profound results. No, there needs to be an approach to it. So yeah, I don't believe in just holding the seed and no fap at all. And I also don't think it's a shameful thing. I think it's a beautiful thing. It's just contextual. Depends on how the person's going about it.
So Chinese medicine, there's like a rhythm of how often a man should ejaculate to have this, to have good energy, which to me is like a revolutionary concept in itself, that it was written in books thousands of years ago that, hey, if you put this energy out all the time, you're probably not going to be at your best. It's not going to be the best thing for you. That stuff dictates, from my understanding, those ancient teachings dictate that the frequency should decrease as you get older. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on, that wisdom. Do you subscribe to that kind of idea? Is there an optimal rhythm based on age, roughly, for ejaculation?
I think to a degree that this is true. I've always been a man of questioning and curiosity. So I think what's allowed me to have a really interesting life is I'll take the information that I'm told, and then I question it, or don't believe that it's the full truth. Also, I don't think anything's the full truth. So yeah, to a degree, as you get older, should a man not ejaculate as much? I think to a degree, yeah. But what I think is way more important is that the man takes it on himself to discover that relationship. For myself, like, men will ask me, they're working with me, and if they're a similar age, like tell me like how often you ejaculate, so I can do the same. And I say, I'm willing to tell you that. But what is more powerful is if you do the practices that I've mentioned and you start to understand what this relationship is with your own body. And I know, like with my partner, I know when I need to and when I don't. And I have buttloads of energy. She's never unsatisfied. Like I can hold that within myself, and it's everlasting and always there. But I had to figure out what that was for myself. Sometimes it's too much, sometimes not enough. So similar to training, you know, sometimes you have to find the edges, and you may find, you know, 50-year-old men who just have more ability to do that and you know, ejaculate more. But if they've earned their stripes and they understand their body in that way and they're feeling good. I mean, of course, you know, we could look at this maybe from like a more scientific lens, and let's say take some blood work. Let's see what's happening. But for me, this practice has been about how do you have a relationship with your body and how do you own that. So if your energy is good and you're able to conduct yourself in that way, I think that is more important than looking at it like, okay, I'm this age, that means this for me, because that can be limiting. I'd rather a man take it on themselves to understand, okay, what is this actually for me? How do I know when I'm energy depleted versus like, oh, I have a lot moving through me right now, if that makes sense.
And so would the idea of a rhythm, if you arrive to it yourself through time, like, is that something that you're sort of conscious of? And would you expect someone's testosterone levels on a blood test potentially to change with adopting the kind of practices and consciousness around this relative to, you know, someone who's potentially stuck in that addiction and losing that energy all the time?
That's something I'd be really, really fascinated to see. I know there is some research that shows that when men have, you know, stimulated themselves or had intercourse, I believe, and they don't ejaculate, the testosterone boosts quite a bit, like very, very significantly. I think more research needs to be done in that realm to maybe get some people on board with it. But I do believe, like, I mean, in my subjective experience, as I continue these practices, all that I've ever desired, let's say in a sexual interaction with a woman, has been met and beyond, more than I've ever been able. No man has ever told me that these types of experiences are possible. And it's only through the text of, like, now I'm kind of jumping a little bit more into the woo with these deep energetic connections. And I don't know what my testosterone levels are, but like, I have lots of good energy. I'm going after things like in a huge way with my business. Like I'm not afraid to do the things that I want to do, and I know and I see that, you know, maybe it's my nature as the person that I am. But there are men around that look to me and they're like, "How are you not afraid to do these things? Like, why are you willing to step into this?" And I feel like it is associated to that an energy that I'm able to cultivate. I don't have the science on that though exactly. That's like, for me, this has been more of like a personal practice, but that's something I'd be really, really curious to see. And hopefully we can get to that point in the world.
Yeah. I've been a bit like that with diet stuff as well. Like, do the things that make me feel better. And then I don't really care about getting a lot of blood work and gut work done because it can be expensive and it can also kind of be misleading. But I recently did some blood work because a friend, David O'Brien, who does functional medicine testing, he was like, I'm sure that I can help you. And I, you know, like do the testing, and then I'll know for sure if it can confirm like the things that I think, you know, that he thought were going on with me. And so the test did show like something with my immune system that is like overactive, which I've kind of known about for a while. It's shown up on a bunch of blood tests and had it since. I've had it for a long time. But my testosterone levels were like top of the range. And it makes me think of like, I wonder if that is a, you know, competitive advantage that I have when I'm working with a lot of men and I want them to get great results. And it would be interesting to know more of their blood work. But what's even more interesting is if there's practices that make men physiologically more likely to be driven. And we know that, you know, the sleep and the diet stuff can have a huge impact. But more important than the blood test, yeah, is like play with this, you know, understand this stuff more and see what the impact is for you. If someone's listening to this and they're thinking like, I definitely need to make a change with this, like what would you recommend that they do? Like I know you have courses in education and things around that. Like where can someone go? Like do you share stuff around what you're doing?
Yeah, for sure. Right now I realize one of the things that I need to do is create more of like a program that men can do on their own, or something that's low barrier of entry. Because right now I mostly like all I really do is the private coaching, and that's definitely like a higher ticket offer. But with regards to like how can men, if they're like, oh, I really need to get into this, I want to address this area of my life, reading about it is a great way to start, because it's more of a philosophy. Because when you adopt the philosophy, it's kind of like when you see, it's like that idea, like once you see it, you can't not see it. And if a man can see this and really be like, whoa, like, yes, I'm impacted by this, then the drive to change becomes, I think, inevitable. And so, reading, like, for example, Mantak Chia, he has a really good book about cultivating male sexual energy. That's a great place to start. Another great place to start, but I understand this suggestion may be very hard for men, is carving out time to connect with your body without any sort of visual stimulation. But I've realized in my coaching that that's very unfamiliar for some men, or even to see that, like, cultivating pleasure, like the way that I do it, it's not like a workout, but it's like a yoga class almost. Like it's very different than what a man would imagine. So it's just like a willingness, I guess, to explore yourself in that way and see like what comes up, the shame or the discomfort, or that willingness to be like, I'm going to explore myself and not be visually stimulating myself from something else. I think reading's a good start though. So you can understand like what's happening in your body. What did the ancients say? What were their approaches? And then when it comes to other courses, I know there are a few men out there that have some courses here and there on like the guidance of it. But yeah, I think you can find the knowledge, at least. Like we're in the era of knowledge, right? Like you can look up anything nowadays. So finding more information about it's important.
Have you built a resource around this, as far as like I use Notion, like the second brain concept? I encourage everyone that I work with to begin to gather their resources, things that externally they like, and then also like their own writings. When you get ideas, like what are the main things that you wish everybody knew? It doesn't really matter about which software you use. There's other softwares you can use, Notes or Obsidian, but do you have something along these lines?
I do have a bit of something along these lines. Like one thing I send to my clients is like I call it a sexual kung fu cheat sheet, and it essentially goes over, like, I've distilled a huge portion of the practice into something that is more condensed, that can be done in not so long of a time. So it explains that practice, why those practices are done, and it also explains for lack of a better word, the energy orgasm that everyone seems to be so fascinated about, or the people who do usually come to me, men, they're like, oh, like, what is that about? So I have a bit of a distillation there. But what you just said gets me to thinking, like having a Notion board, which I do use, and just like really putting so many resources in there and filling it up is probably a really good idea.
It's a good segue, I think, into like, because you're thinking bigger now about, you've got this business and you know that you really value this and you're good at it and you're helping people with it. But then you've sort of realized that there's a lot of other services and sub niches in this space of exploring yourself and improving yourself that don't necessarily, like, they're missing some of the business side of it. So you've started to help others who have, would you say like kind of alternative or more obscure, or how would you describe the type of businesses that you are starting to work with and support to get their word out and run their events?
Like through like Human Potential Academy, for example, like that.
That's what I'm sort of like. So you started this Human Potential Academy to support effectively like practitioners like yourself to be able to get their word out and live their purpose. Is that?
Yeah, to a degree. Yeah, like and it's interesting combining those worlds. Like with that business, really it's the model, I guess you could say, is co-creation, like getting entrepreneurs, coaches, innovators together to who understand that we want business and I guess connection to be a bit different, a bit more about the people, and also merging kind of two worlds, science and spirituality. So those, yeah, the people we'll work with or connect with range usually from, it's mostly entrepreneurs, right? People who I think are entrepreneurs are the stewards or spearheading a lot of the way that the world would be conducted. So yeah, so sorry, the question, like, how do I interact with those people, or how do I tie this in?
No, I was sort of thinking about, like, you've been through your own journey with your own business there, and now you're, you know, you're working with. So, is it mostly entrepreneurs who have businesses in that science and spirituality, like niche? Would you say? Like, that was sort of what I was trying to put words to. What type of businesses that are likely to work with you there, and then what are you doing with it?
Yeah, totally. So it is mostly those, I'd say, businesses who are perhaps in a spiritual niche or desire to be impact driven. Although the mission with that, like right now, there's that avatar of someone who is like spiritually inclined or wellness inclined. But in the coming years, like my mission is to really grab the attention of those who are more financially abundant, but for lack of a better word, let's say emotionally, spiritually lacking. But they know inside that they see, oh, I want to create more impact. I want to actually be a part of the shift that is inevitable, which is, again, like maybe, or for lack of a better word, people over profit. So those are the bridges I'm wanting to learn how to make. But for right now, yeah, it's very much community driven, wellness driven, humans in business. And how we're going about that right now is it's kind of two ways. We have this like a coaching academy where the philosophy is approaching what we call the 5 pillars of human potential. So like your physical pillar, your mental, your emotional, spiritual, and financial. Financial is usually one people always miss, like seeing that as a very important pillar, and coaching individuals in those domains. And we believe that with that approach, whatever that the client is going through with their business or their life, we can address, like the needs. So that's one approach we're going about it, is through education, and another approach is through experience. So events and retreats that give people an opportunity to expand themselves through the practices that I've embodied and that I really, really love, like breath work or even plant medicine, embodiment, movement, doing so together. And one of the things that I'm working on right now is getting thought leaders, getting coaches, people who feel like they want to innovate and they want to have big impact, and getting them together for experiences so we can co-create, inspire each other, remind each other, like, this is what we're here to do. Yes, I want to make big waves in the world. So that's right now how we're going about those things.
Yeah. So you're bringing together, you've got like a team of practitioners that can deliver a holistic solution to then attract those who are seeing that a really materialistic view of life, and they're just sort of seeing the system cracking in a way, and they're looking for a way to rebuild themselves and do something different. And you're assembling the team of practitioners to be able to provide that service. Is that
essentially
a decent summary?
Yeah, it's exactly like speaking more to the people who see the cracks in the system. They want to step into a different way of doing things. Really right now we're trying to find people who share the vision, and that vision again is like this worlds of science and spirituality merging, more integrity in the financial sector, seeing in every industry like people above profit, where the human isn't undermined by profit. Like I come from a healthcare background. I was a respiratory therapist for half a decade, and I really saw a lot of times that like money ends up being the bottom line, like that ends up being the thing that makes all decisions at the end of the day. And I want to see a world where that's not the be all end all. Like, yes, finance is incredibly important, but what does money represent? It's energy and value of something. What is more valuable than a human life and what we bring to each other? The resources and ideas and things we bring. So I think it's just finding people who want to recalibrate in that way, and yeah, who want to put our experience and what we can create together as the highest.
Yeah, it's a good, worthy thing to explore, of like, how do we actually make a better world, and what role does money have in it? Because in effect, yeah, money is just an exchange of energy and a measure of value, and it shouldn't determine whether someone lives or dies in a time where we have so much good technology. But then the ways that we've experimented with equalizing things seem to like break the human spirit with welfare and with communism and these kinds of experiments that we've been running, and we're potentially moving towards universal basic income. It's a whole department within ChatGPT, and it's been discussed on Joe Rogan a number of times. And it's
Totally.
like, what is that going to look like? Where, like, I know for myself, and you're in business as well. Like, the purpose of the business isn't money, but if it's not making any money, then you don't get to help people, because you have to go and do something else, and you don't get to employ your staff who are living from the fact that the business works. And it's like, sometimes there's the idea that all business is bad and that all bosses are greedy, and that every corporation needs to pay more tax, and that's going to solve the world's problems. But and you bring it down to the micro of like my own business, like me paying more tax, or me giving more money to my staff, like it actually puts them at risk, because the business gets close to collapse if we're paying out maximally. And so it's the balance between these things that is really a challenge for businesses, but then for the individual, for the bigger economic question, like what would the best use of money be in the economic system? And I wonder, I know you think deeply on things, like what's your take on the financial transition?
Yeah, thank you for bringing these topics up, especially like a monetary system. And I like a pendulum, I don't think being extreme on either side is going to be helpful. I think there's like perhaps this tension point maybe between the two poles, capitalism, communism. I do believe though, like so with the current financial climate, I agree with a lot of the things that you're saying. And again, I keep bringing this in, even with the sexual energy. I think it's more of a paradigm shift of understanding that there are natural hierarchies and merit and value from those natural hierarchies. But does that always have to be in association with, because I should I have more finance and more money because of those things? Or can we shift the paradigm to like me providing more is one of the most abundant things that I can do? How does that shift the whole like financial climate? I'm not exactly sure. Again, this is like ideas that I have. But right now I think things are going in a very interesting way, like good and bad. I'm not really in support of a whole baseline income or like what's it called, like a social credit system associated to money.
Universal basic income delivered by a central bank digital currency that's associated with your social credit score. It's already kind of been rolled out in China in some parts. Australia is actually ready to take on CBDCs in 2024, as far as I'm understanding. Like this, these are big questions about how money's going to work. And the vision of abundance is something that I've thought a lot about for the last decades.
Yeah, I think this, like, so maybe on a more meta level, when there's so seeing money as energy, right? And I think it's important that we realize like that what it represents, that all these things that you acquire from money, we can acquire free from the earth, but that requires our energy and our to a level and degree of expertise on how to acquire or harvest those things. So that's something I think has been kind of lost. We forgot about that. Like I was never taught those things. And then when there's that baseline of money, how do we understand like, the idea of who's providing this? Now we're kind of subservient or giving ourselves to this system instead of understanding like how does that system work, or how do we contribute to it? There seems to be maybe an unspoken agreement with that, well, I'll be within the system and you'll provide me this baseline of what I need, as opposed to what are you contributing as a valuable merit human in the system, and therefore placing yourself maybe on the hierarchy. So I want to discuss, or I guess figure out where is the place in between this, because I don't want to be fully dependent on a massive system. I don't think that's really good for humans. And at the same time, I don't want to be on my own. So, on this topic, though, I think there's going to be some decentralization that occurs because of the huge shift in the way that money works, also in the ideas that people have, that things will kind of split up a little bit before they come together again.
Yeah. It's even come up inside of Uncommon Success, right? Like one of the guys messaged me, hey, I've got some tough financial times. Like, what can you do? This thing's come up for my mom. And I'm thinking like, this is the kind of what government does, right? It's like it provides a sort of a somewhat of a safety net, and then, guarantees some level of existence. And I know that within our network, like we want others to do well, but how do you provide some kind of support or that doesn't undermine the process of that man actualizing himself and taking responsibility and building the business that he wants to build and those sorts of things as well. Like I don't want to just be like, oh yeah, man, here's some money, sort out your stuff with your mom and just give it back sometime if you feel like it. Like that's not good for him either. It's like, so they are challenging things, and the more we can take responsibility and be people of value, I think that's the direction that we want to go. And I love that your services are everything you're thinking about is like about improving and enhancing the individual experience. And if those individuals are more empowered and healthier, then they're going to be able to contribute more. And the people that you're working with are doing the same. So if we can continue to go in that direction, like I think the more answers will present themselves. But it's good also to be clear, that what we're not moving towards as well.
Mm-hmm. You bring up a really good point, Keegan. So when it comes to money, when it comes to the hierarchy and all these things, it's important, I think, to bring to people's minds that like we don't know what we don't know. Some people don't know what it's like to not be in a state of where they're in, where it's like, if I don't get my own, like that's not good, and I need to make sure that I fend for myself. And money is again, this is an idea, it's a philosophy. What happens when the philosophy more globally changes to I want to be of better service to those around me? And again, that's not dishing out free handouts, because I don't help men by dishing them out like free handouts and answers. That's why I make my private coaching very expensive, so that their skin is in the game. So I do believe that it's not just this linear relationship, and I love that you bring that out. It's like sometimes it's not helping another man or any human to be like, here, let me bail you out of this, but holding the philosophy that if I'm of service to someone, that is the greatest gift to the world. Of course, ensuring that I fill my own and I have my own stability, but then asking yourself that deeper question, how do I be of better service? And of course, money can be involved in that, but it's like, what do you do with that, with your resources? Like what I see you doing, like you're inspiring men, you're having amazing conversations, like you're doing so much with what you have. You're creating huge waves with what you have, like you're building villages, and like you're doing all of these things with what you have. I think you're being of great service, and you don't have to dish out money to people right, left, and center. Rather, you're creating ideas, you're having conversations. Like you're actually a fine example of everything I'm talking about, is like embodying all the things that you believe to be true and trying to give that out as reasonably as possible to those who want to go on the mission, those who want to step up. So I think, it requires a big shift in mentality, an approach to life. And then from there, we can have more conversation about what's possible, if that makes sense.
Does.
Mhm.
Can you repeat again the name of the book that you mentioned before, or like spell it if you know? It's
Oh yeah.
I think that'll be a challenging one for.
Let me 1 sec. I'll just like find it and list and read it off, and also show so people can see.
Yeah.
The one on sexual energy, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for any man is watching this, and there's like what I usually say to dudes, so that they can be a little bit more connected to their body, is if they're feeling that pull in your body, and it's not just logically, it's like, I don't understand, like, why would I do this? A lot of times, again, the programming, right? We've been programmed in society. Oh, this is weird. This is wrong. Like, why would I do that? But listen to your heart. If you're listening to this as a man, if you feel that pull, just like read some of this stuff and open your mind. But it's called The Taoist Secrets of Love, Cultivating Male Sexual Energy. It's probably going to be backwards, but yeah. It's a older, or I don't know how old it is actually now, maybe the 90s, but it's a good book. It's a good place to start with these things. Montauk Chia describes it in a pretty good way. Like, there are definitely some more obscure concepts, but he's kind of the guy who started this whole movement of sexual kung fu, distilling Taoist practice into more of a practice, like taking those large esoteric concepts and distilling it down.
Very cool. And yeah, I think it would be a good service to think about something that is an on-ramp into your personal coaching that men could get involved with. Yeah, do you have like an email list or anything like that?
I do have a bit of an email list. People can like sign up for that on my website, and yeah, that's something I'm working on. I believe by the end of the year, I'll have what I'm going to call like the foundations. It might be like, because really what I label my work as like erotic embodiment, eroticism meaning that eros, like the fire or like the sexual energy. And I've created, I want to create a foundational course that basically takes men through how to understand to do that practice I was telling you about. It's called the Core 4. And that gives them the ability to practice this on their own, and kind of shift their state from like, I'm masturbating to pornography, to I'm able to conduct myself and have a bit of a practice, or a really good practice, to cultivate the energy. So that's something I'm working on right now that I'm really quite excited about. I know some men in Uncom are pretty fascinated and excited about it as well, which has actually been on a little bit of a tangent. Really, really cool. I do, whenever I have calls in Uncom, men are generally very fascinated by this work, whether they're outwardly saying it or not. Like, they're generally like, yeah, I understand that this is an important part of me, and I want to be better at these things. I mean, what man doesn't want to be better, have a better sexual prowess, and also, yeah, to have a deeper connection to their body in that way. But yeah, that will be coming, I'd say, at the end of this year at the latest.
Very cool. Well, I was going to ask you before about the comment about the sex without ejaculation. That was the excuse that Ben Johnson gave for testing positive to steroids in 1988. I think subsequently it has been admitted and proven that he was taking steroids. It wasn't actually the story, but it must have been known back then that testosterone could be through the roof. I mean, I don't think they were talking about whether he ejaculated or not, but that was the story that the night before he tried to pass it off as that. Yeah, talk to us about like what's the story with that? What's your take on it?
My understanding is that it takes a decent amount of energy, or let's just say resources, for the body to produce semen. And when you hold on to it, I think it signals to the body that we don't have to produce so much. And I think that it allows it to be cycled. So when in the Taoist philosophy, they talk about different forms of energy, and the original form is called Jing Qi, which I think is just honestly the fluids that are in your body. It's the essence. And all of the weird kind of hard to understand things in these ancient practices, there's a way to explain it in the physical body. Like, for example, the chakras are the glandular systems. They're very refined cells and collections of cells in the body that do a very specific role. And what's the energy? A lot of it, I think, is negatively and positively charged like cations and ions moving through the body. We know that we create an electromagnetic field. Like science has shown this. Like we do that. So I think what's happening in the body is we're able to hold more of that life force, of that those hormones, those positively, negatively charged particles, and then we're able to move it through the body, mostly through the spinal column, but also we're able to bring more of that blood or more of that energy, for lack of a better word, to different organs and different organ systems, and not just release all of the energy. So I believe on a, like, let's just say, like, not a super deep scientific level, that's my understanding of it. That's what I believe is occurring. Because in all the ancient texts, they just talk about just cycling the energy, moving the energy around. It's like, well, what is that? What is energy? You know? So that's my explanation, or that's my understanding of it, and how, you know, I approach it.
Very cool. Yeah, that's a good summary of a bunch of different topics there, with the glandular system and the chakras and fluids of the body. You've brought a lot to us there. I appreciate that that you're part of my life, Brian, and that we get to have this as a first kind of dive into what you're doing. I must admit that it's been challenging for me of, like, am I going to have this conversation and, meeting? And I know that we've got lots of common ground and interesting things to talk about outside of the sexual energy world and the eroticism. But I do appreciate that we were able to have this conversation, and I hope that it allows it to develop as one of the key concepts and pillars within Uncommon Success and within the framework of a great life. That so many men are looking for how to optimize their sleep and how to optimize their diet and their training. And I love that you're bringing this as a pillar that can be understood and can be used better. There's a lot more we could discuss, but I think that's really, really powerful. And I appreciate you sharing and all the work that you're doing. And if someone wants to check out your stuff, obviously using your IG, maybe share your IG handle, and then what is that the best way for if someone wants to connect via Instagram or?
Yeah, Instagram would be the best right now. So that's my last name, Carew, CAREW _embodiment. And thanks for everything you said, Keegan. I have an immense amount of respect that you would have this conversation, and like your willingness to talk about it. I think that's being a leader, is like, I'll have this conversation, I'll see what this guy has to say. I have an immense amount of respect for you. Like I've said to you before, I look up to you in the sense of like what you've built in your family and like what you've been able to provide. So thank you for the work that you do and your openness. Being an open-minded and a hearted man, I think, is what's required for a man to be a leader. And I see you in that way. So thanks for this opportunity to have a conversation about these topics.
Thank you, brother. Look forward to connecting in person sometime soon. And we'll speak again soon. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, brother. You too.
Thanks everyone tuning in. If you listen back to the recording as well, always interesting to hear feedback. I'm sure Brian and Jay would also love to hear from you if you listen into this one. And look forward to the next conversations. If you want to be a guest on one of these future conversations, reach out as well. And let's continue leveling up and having these conversations. I also encourage you to host your own. It's a fun thing to do. It's a skill and a challenge in itself. It is a different thing to have a conversation when you kind of have that feeling that it's on camera and you're looking at screens and all these sorts of things. But I would also suggest anyone checking it out, like, be the guest, be the host. And if we each do that and continue to refine what it is that we value and express our messages, that's getting us closer to the truth and closer to where we want to be, regardless of the little awkwardness or discomfort that might go with that process. So it's not just about listening to be the audience, but also look at it through that lens of, okay, I want to be this kind of guest and I want to be this kind of host, and encourage everyone to be on the other side, be the creator as well as the consumer. I love listening to podcasts, and consuming content is a good thing as long as you're also balancing that with the creative side. Brian's our yin yang balance man in a lot of ways, and that's a good way to finish up with this. Is like, have the conversation. If you want to speak with Brian, you know, bring him on your podcast, or go do an Instagram live, or look at how you can collaborate and connect. And ultimately, that's the way to get better messages out there. Like all of the other messages that we're getting bombarded with, like they're coming at us through these channels, and we have the opportunity to share what we value. And I think that's what we should do. So yeah, looking forward to the next one. Thanks everyone tuning in and supporting, and have a great rest of the day. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, brother. Much love.